Welcome to the Inside Scoop Virginia. My name is Shannon Sullivan and I'm your host this evening. We're going to be talking with the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council. And my two guests, I have Jim Hawk, who's president of the council, and Scott Serval, who is a director on the board and also a past president. I want to highlight a little bit, welcome of course to the show today, the founding of the organization, why you went about building this group, your objectives and perhaps your accomplishments over the last several years, and what you're building to in the future. So maybe bring us back to the beginning.
I'll defer to my senior member of the council here.
Well, it was a dark, cold February back in 2003. Actually, it was back in 2003, in the winter, I guess, is when we started it. And at the time we started it, there used to be a lot more Republican elected officials in Fairfax County.
Very much so.
Not nearly as many anymore. But part of the reason we started it was that we felt like the Republicans at least pretend to claim they have a monopoly on business issues amongst in the political sphere. And we really felt like that wasn't the case, and that people who are active in the Democratic Party or interested in the Democratic Party, its objectives, who are also active in the business community, needed a place to go and to network and to talk to each other and to be able to strategize and talk about policy and issues and candidates and affecting change. And we started the organization back in February of '03, and it's grown ever since. We've been meeting about once a month ever since then. And it's really grown into a terrific organization and continues to grow and change.
How large do you speculate your membership to be so far?
We generally hover between 100 and 150, depending on who pays their dues and how often we remind them to get their checks in. But that's typically what we have. Usually we have breakfast once a month. We usually get 40 people, sometimes 50. If the governor shows up, as many as 100 for our breakfast meetings.
And there's not really any hurdles to joining the organization. It's actually quite straightforward.
Right. Now, there's no secret handshake or secret oath or...
I think I saw, as long as you're 18 years old or $150?
$150 annual membership, which we send out a notice. And one thing, Scott, we have about 600 active folks on our mailing list. So folks come in and come out. And like Scott said, I've been involved in the council, as Scott started it, about 3 years now. I run a company, it's both here in the DC metropolitan area as well as Silicon Valley. It's a technology firm. Technology marketing firm, and I was looking for a place in Northern Virginia to be more active and kind of talk to like-minded people on the Democratic side who just didn't go to Chamber of Commerce meetings but were interested in kind of helping progressive politics in Northern Virginia, and this was a great fit. And I've had the great pleasure for the past year of being the president of the organization, and we've had, as Scott mentioned, we have a great group of speakers, and we've raised thousands of dollars for candidates that support progressive causes, not only in Northern Virginia, throughout the state. And we're really proud of the fact, too, that our members were really active in the Obama campaign and raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for President-elect Obama and helping turn Virginia blue, which was a huge deal, as we all know. So
for Obama, for Warner, for Connolly, for Moran, for Judy Fader. Yeah, it's been all the federal candidates.
It's been great. We didn't have a 100% record, but we came pretty close, thanks to great leadership like Scott outside of the Business Council as well.
Right.
Yeah, and it seems like, as you were saying, having the diversity of the business interests that have progressive ideology, that makes for a wonderful networking opportunity. Knowing what actually is in our own backyard, and that it's not predominantly on the business side leaning toward the Republicans or a more conservative base. I can see that as invaluable.
Absolutely. I mean, and I can only speak personally, but one of the reasons I got involved was I was involved with federal politics on Capitol Hill and live in Arlington for the past 14 years, and my wife and I just had this conversation and said we need to get more active in our local community, and we were frustrated with some of the conversations that were happening in Virginia around gays, guns, and God, thinking that those were the only issues that people cared about, and far from it, as we all know, as you're sitting in traffic every day worrying about these issues. So
well, I was going to cut to that a little bit later, but we might as well hit it now. There's a lot of I don't know if it's a misconception or it's just usually an assumption about the Chamber of Commerce being a Republican hub. And that I don't know necessarily that they're going to focus on the guns, gods, gays, and abortion, but that more of a broad base of issues don't get to a basic discussion point. Was that a concern for you? Maybe partly the reason you founded the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but part of the, and this is nothing against the Chamber of Commerce because they do great work and they're obviously national and in every jurisdiction. But for us, I think the Business Council has been a great venue to talk about these issues. Ranging from healthcare to education to we mentioned transportation, but these are all issues that are bread and butter issues that everyone cares about, right? And as a business owner myself, who has to worry about a bottom line every day, I worry about my employees, and I want to talk to people who are also engaged in these issues as well.
Did you feel that those weren't as thoroughly discussed on the chamber side, or it's just something you wanted to dive into on a more intimate level with this organization?
I did. They are discussed in general in the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been involved in the Arlington Chamber as well, and these issues are talked about there. I think for me personally, part of the frustration is, for the last 8 years, we've seen an economic policy from the White House on down that pretty much is tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts, and that's just, to me, it's one tool in the toolkit.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but I don't know about Jim, but my firm joined the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce a few years ago, and every meeting notice or every notice that we got about an opportunity to meet a legislator, he was either with Bill Howell, John Chichester, Dave Albo, or some other well-connected Republican. And from my point of view, that wasn't something that we were all that interested in supporting. And I don't think those guys really have the true heart of the business community or at heart. The interest of the business community at their heart. They have their own agenda. And I think, from my point of view, at least, the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce tends to focus on, and for that matter, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce especially, tends to focus on really big business, and for that matter, the interests of mostly the corporate executives and the owners, as opposed to the employees and the people that work in small business. And I think our organization has a much broader base of small business owners than, for example, the Chamber of Commerce might. And I think I think if you were to look at real, true business owners, I bet you a lot more of them are Democrats than are Republicans. If you look at the entire business world and not just the corporate CEOs and the really, really big companies.
Certainly.
So that's part of what was driving things from my end. I mean, I'd like to have business discussions with Democrats and not just the Speaker of the House, who, from my point of view, does everything he can to obstruct what we need in Northern Virginia, which is what the business community up here wants.
There's definitely a different perspective when you're talking about small or even minority-owned businesses,
Right.
when it's your local community that is your bread and butter.
Right.
Because education, transportation, healthcare, they're things that affect not just the state, but how you're able to operate your business and operate it successfully.
Absolutely.
So I also want to offer the opportunity for people to call into the show if you have a question for our guests, even a comment. You can do so at 571-749-1166. And if you're interested in getting some more information on the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, you can do so on their website, which is www.nvdembiz.org. So how would you like to, I guess, recap some of your major accomplishments over the last several years? You've definitely set up a founding as far as your objectives and your policy as far as moving, progressive ideals forward. How have those risen to the top, and what would you like to bring to everyone's attention?
Scott, you want to go first? Or?
Sure.
Big bucket there to kind of tackle.
No, in 2005, one of the things we did is we started a PAC, and we $5 of everybody's breakfast tends to go to the PAC, and $25 of every membership fee. We also had a couple PAC fundraisers. I think we had Helen Thomas at one fundraiser, a famous White House correspondent. We had a couple direct mail campaigns. We ended up raising, by the end of the last legislative cycle in 2007, I think $17,000.
Wow.
And then we ended up having a meeting where all of the different legislative challengers and a few candidates, I guess, came to us, our meeting, and gave a little speech, and the membership had an election, and we decided how to disperse that money. The members got to participate in it, and we ended up distributing, I guess, about $17,000. I think out of the 7 or 9 candidates we supported, only a couple of them lost.
Right.
Most of those state legislature, you do local stuff as well?
No, we only give, we had to draw some lines, or else it was going to be a real nightmare.
There'd be a lot of hands reaching into the pot.
Exactly. And so, no, we only gave to the state legislative races. We don't have a federal PAC. There's a lot of paperwork associated with that, but it's just the state PAC, and we don't give in local races. We've limited our boundaries to Prince William, Loudoun, East, and North, I guess.
Okay.
I don't think we include Stafford or Fauquier, I think. It says on our website. But in any event, that was a big accomplishment, and we're still raising money for the PAC this year. We're going to have some events coming up with that. But that I thought was a real significant accomplishment.
What type of criteria were you looking for when you were, I don't know if it's necessarily making an endorsement, but handing out the money?
We had each of our candidates fill out it was about a 5-page questionnaire where they told us about their polling, their viability, their baseline numbers, things like that. We did some vetting, trying to figure out who had a better shot than others, and that was part of the the PAC board distributed part of the money, and the membership did the other part of it. And so I think the Senate candidates probably tended to get a little more consideration than the House of Delegates because they only run once every 4 years. You only have one shot every 4 years to make a difference in those races. That was part of it. Going forward, one of the things I think we're talking about doing is developing an issue platform, some issues to push, and also looking at getting some commitments on some of our issues going forward when we have those kinds of discussions.
Well, it'd definitely be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of meetings in the past, but what we really want to start doing is pushing policy points, both in the legislature and at the federal level and other things, and trying to drive our program around that, our breakfast program around that. And so,
are you perhaps looking to the point where members would be lobbying on certain issues, either whether it be phone calls or going down to the General Assembly or some capacity of actual grassroots activity?
Absolutely. We have a standing invitation from Senator Mary Margaret Whipple to come down for a lobbying day. We just need to schedule it. And one thing I just wanted to add to what Scott said is when we doled out our PAC dollars last year, it was a vote of our entire membership. So members got to hear from the elected officials or prospective elected officials, and then it was very democratic in terms of which candidates we wanted to support. With little d. So it was it was exciting. 17,000. We have a goal of a little bit larger for this year. We just hired an executive director for the first time in the organization's history, so she's just going to start in January. So we're excited about that as well, to hopefully take the organization to the next level. I mean, we've done some terrific work, but I think we're going to have more exciting things to come in 2009 and beyond.
Oh, so. Absolutely. It's definitely going to be a busy year as far as the governor's race and trying to get some of those pickup seats for the Democrats and the state legislature. Last shot before our census, we draw those lines,
a huge issue.
Which is why you mentioned the Senate seat was definitely a priority. I can understand previously, but it's all about the House of Delegates this year. Not to cast a shadow upon the governor's race whatsoever, but it's definitely been an interesting year for Virginia Democrats. All of the successes that we've been able to accomplish in the last few years, especially with the Virginia turning blue in the presidential race, and there's a lot more that I can see that the business community, along with the labor community and all of our progressive allies, moving our platform forward and our candidates forward.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I commend you with everything that you're doing, founding this organization and building, not only a grassroots base of supporters within the business community, being able to network with them, to educate them, having your monthly luncheons. It's a wonderful initiative, and very much congratulate you on that effort. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a few moments. We'll talk a little bit more about the highlights of what the Business Council has been able to do in the last few years and what they're planning to do in the years to come. Be with you in just a moment.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One and some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoking before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop money. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent! Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My name is Shannon Sullivan. I'm your host this evening. We are talking with the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, and I'm going to read from their mission. The Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council provides opportunities for Democrats and like-minded independents to meet and network with other professionals, interact with elected officials, bring speakers and programs of interest to the Democratic business community, and meet candidates for local, state, and federal office. There's quite a bit there going on with the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, and I have with me Jim Hawk, who's president of the council, and Scott Serval, who's the director and past president, that's going to elaborate on this, I can't say newly found organization, but still in its infancy in Virginia politics.
Absolutely.
And we were, before the break, highlighting a few of your accomplishments since your founding in 2003, talking about your PAC that has raised a significant amount of money for local candidates, and wonder if you wanted to carry on with a couple things that has, I guess, risen to the top in your memory as far as your accomplishments.
One other thing I remember that I thought was significant, when I realized that we had accomplished some important things, was in 2005, the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce sort of threw a curveball at everybody when they came out and endorsed Jerry Kilgore. And that was actually a shock to most people, both in the business community and actually a lot of people I know in the Fairfax County Chamber. Nobody saw that coming at all. And it was interesting because as soon as that happened, one of the things that the Kane people did was they came looking for other people in Northern Virginia that were in the business community that thought that this was a bad thing. And our organization provided a ready source of people and names and leaders that they could immediately go to say, you know, what in the world's going on here? And you know, that didn't exist before. They could come right to us. You know, we quickly sent out an email and had a list of 100 people that were willing to say that they thought this was ridiculous. You know, our group is an important constituency, and we're recognized, I think, within the parties a lot. I mean, all the statewide candidates have already come to our. I think every single one of them has already come to our meetings by now, I think.
Yep.
I think it also helps to have, you know, the name recognition of the organization balanced against having the professional ideals of knowing what Democrats need, and balancing it against, you know, alternative business concepts.
Right.
Not necessarily that they're always in conflict, but just giving an alternative view to how we can, you know, advance as a community and as Democrats.
Yeah, but I think our group is seen as a place that you got to stop by if you're running for office, though. Whether if you're running for statewide office, or even if you're running for local office, just about everybody who's even thinking about running shows up at one of our meetings and says hi and meets people and stuff before they even announce they're running, I think.
That's right. We had Terry McAuliffe come to our last meeting,
Yeah.
The Energizer Bunny, and we've had Brian Moran come in the past as well, and he was terrific.
Wait, they're running for what?
I think governor. But we're looking forward to having Creed Eads in 2009, and we're hoping to have a gubernatorial forum at some point in 2009 before the Democratic primary.
Wonderful.
So the Democratic candidates can square off, and so the business community of Northern Virginia can learn about their positions and who they want to support. So hopefully we'll have more information to come on that.
Yeah, it would be wonderful to have a debate where the outcome of who is declared the winner is not based on the personal ideology of an organization and actually on what the candidates stand for, which is not always the case in other business forums.
Right. Absolutely. And like Scott said, I mean, this group is all about providing a forum to candidates, and we're not picking and choosing one way or the other. Yeah. There's obviously personal preferences in some cases across the board, but as an organization, we don't pick and choose. We just
yeah, you had said that the questionnaire has more questions pertaining to the viability of one's candidacy and not policy. Although you're interested in maybe moving some of those platform issues. Absolutely. But it's not that you must be a businessman or woman in order to get an endorsement or to get money.
No. Now we've had, I think John Bowerbank has come. He's running for lieutenant governor. He's been to our meetings. I think Jody Wagner, I think she was there last month. I think every single statewide candidate's already come through, and the election hasn't even started yet, really. It's just getting started. But and
the election calendar always seems to move forward year in and year out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, Jen, I mean, this year in Virginia is particularly important because of the redistricting and you know, one of many issues, but that's a big issue for Democrats moving into 2010. You know, to see what seats are for the next decade to come.
Absolutely. And I want to invite our listeners to, if they want to call in, please join us with questions or comments, any of your concerns. We air everything. Our number is 571-749-1166. And if you want to reach out to the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, you can do so on their website. It's www.nvdembiz.org. And I think we might have a shot for you on the screen if you're interested in taking a sneak peek. Moving ahead, what else might be a highlight over the last few years?
There's been a lot of great things that happened for the Business Council. I mean, as Scott laid out really articulately all the issues that we've been working on. You know, one issue that's come up of late for the Business Council, but it's been an issue that's kind of percolated nationally across the last couple of years, is the issue of green technology. And the governor's folks, Governor Kane's folks, just reached out to us a couple of weeks ago to see you know, which of our members would be willing to support his green technology effort, which he unveiled on December 11th. So, you know, that's a key issue that we've seen in other states like California and others, that, you know, when you build green technologies across, you know, especially in rural areas, it's important for job growth from that perspective. So, particularly in this state, you know, we all care about Northern Virginia, but we also care about Southwest and South side of Virginia as well. So, you know, these are jobs that are high paying, you know, that can really infuse kind of new energy into an economy.
Taking the words right out of my mouth. And also building the local infrastructure, whether it's, you know, outside of Northern Virginia or we might have a few come to this area, who knows.
And we've also heard for some great speakers. For example, Anish Chopra, we've had him a couple of times. That guy's, as far as I'm concerned, brilliant. But I mean, he points out, we've had some, I mean, I remember one of the great discussions he had was he talked a lot about the Northern Virginia technology community, how the patent, I think his point was that a lot of our patents are sort of derivative of other patents or other technologies, whereas in other places like Silicon Valley, they have a much more sort of, the patents are new things. I forget how he described it, but he talked about how there's much more academic base and there's research facilities and all these other things, and how Northern Virginia could be well served by broadening its technology infrastructure base by going into areas like that and promoting the research field at the various colleges and some of the other big.
That's right.
He talked about bringing some bigger business research facilities, and instead of just trying to get a headquarters, it's better to get the research facility because then it spins off other things. And we've had some great speakers like that come in and sort of broaden your mind as to how it is you can do economic development in a good way, and that broadens your brain power in your community. And we've really had some incredible speakers, not just him, but even some very prominent national people like Mac McLarty, President Clinton's former chief of staff, came and spoke. John Podesta came and spoke when he founded the Center for American Progress. He came and told us all about this new thing he was creating, which the Obama administration is now taking all these different people out of it. Right. Because it was such a success.
The administration waiting.
We can feel good ideas better than anyone.
We've had John Zogby talking about kind of general politics as well.
The National Pollster, right.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to add to what Scott was saying, though, about green technology and technology overall as someone who works in that sector. And Anish, as Scott laid out, has been so great, you know, articulating the vision the governor has across the state. But if you look at an issue of like broadband technology, we're going to see a huge infusion of a stimulus package And broadband is going to be one of those big issues that in the
That's
southwestern.
been a long time coming.
Absolutely, and in the southwestern part of the state, it's critical. You know, you've seen in the technology industry across the U.S. over the last 10 years, $2 trillion of economic growth just from this sector alone, as well as kind of productivity growth as well. So, you know, this is an industry that Northern Virginia has. You know, Nish's vision, as Scott laid out so well, is to build that incubator in a stronger way, similar to Silicon Valley, to build those institutions like Stanford and the University of California here in Northern Virginia, so that the George Masons of the world are having that impact from the new technology standpoint to keep the job engine pumping here in Northern Virginia.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate that it's taken a political push to actually get that ball rolling, because it's been coming or been trying to move for quite a long time. But you're right, for the wealth or the prosperity of the state as a whole, it's going to require that development.
Well, the problem with moving the ball is that to move the ball, you need money. And the Republicans have specialized in starving government to death for the last 10 or 15 years. And, you know, you look at what's going on in California. What did Schwarzenegger put through? It was like a $50 million biotech bond initiative or something. Or what was that?
Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar bond initiative for biotech to basically, you know, California has a strong biotech kind of sector, and it's to keep that infusion growing, because you're only as good in any sector, but especially in the technology sector, you're only as good as your last innovation, right? So, you know, to keep the innovation engine pumping, you got to keep government support. You know, people tend to forget that the internet was originally a government-funded project by DARPA and Department of Defense. So hopefully we can have that same kind of effort with green technology and broadband to keep that engine pumping. Because our international competitors, it's not just a Virginia thing.
No.
This is globally. We're competing against China and India and others for the best and brightest. So.
Right, but it's hard to do that in Virginia when we don't even have the money to, you know, build a bridge. I mean,
don't tell me that. I drive across the Wilson every day. I don't need to hear those.
There's you know, there's obviously priorities, but you know, the Virginia government has not had that kind of economic development as a big priority of its own, and you know, they're busy cutting all the colleges like crazy now to balance the budget, which is what they're probably going to have to do unless, you know, some new revenue sources are brought into play. But you know, those are the kinds of things that where the government can really be a boon to the business community and change communities for the better. And you know, if people just need to think more broadly than they have in the past. So.
And I think as we move into the future with the fiscal crunch in the state of Virginia, well, across the country, to put it mildly, that there's going to be a lot of initiatives that are going to require the business community's input. And hopefully we can get your 2 cents on that when we come back in just a moment.
Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands. Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex. Half of the people in the world living with AIDS are women. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we can change this reality. Let's strive for a world free of violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. At Volunteers of America, we don't just help people, we help people help themselves. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No, 127 consecutive.
Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My name is Shannon Sullivan and I'm your host this evening. We're talking with the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, and I have with me Jim Hawk, who's president of the council, and Scott Serval, who is a director and past president. We were highlighting some of your, policy triumphs over the last few years, your fundraising goals and objectives, and we've started to go into the state of Virginia, the economy as it is, and perhaps some of your legislative objectives, dealing specifically with the economic crunch as it is right now, and perhaps how the business community sees its part in that crisis.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Shannon, we've essentially have, and I had a meeting about this today at work, people are tending to forget that we've just had the economic equivalent to 9/11 in September of 2008. So the world has changed in dramatic ways, and absolutely, and whether it's $500 billion of economic stimulus that Obama administration puts forth, or 750 or $1 billion, these are incredibly difficult times in terms of just making sure we get this right. And it's not only a U.S. problem; it's a global problem. So. But to that point, it trickles down to Virginia, and every family here in Virginia is facing it. And as a business owner and someone who employs a number of people, I worry every day about making sure that we have enough revenue to cover expenses and pay people. And my worst fear is having to lay someone off in this time. When there's job loss is such a big deal, and for a long time, Virginia has been fairly well insulated because of the Defense Department spending and all this kind of stuff. But as business leaders and owners, we want to make sure we get this right, and we want to support the right people to make sure that these decisions are getting made in the right way. Because it is, everyone throws around the word public-private partnership, but it really is. You need the business community and the business community support at this critical time. With healthcare, education, all these important issues that to make sure that our people are taken care of.
And I think you had hit upon a point earlier, which I'd like to stress a little bit further, building the jobs that are going to build, the infrastructure, not just locally, but as a state, and those being good, well-paying jobs where people are able to support a family and give back to the community. If you have a thriving paycheck, you have a thriving community.
Absolutely. And as a business owner, again, there's nothing, we were talking about this earlier before the show, is we've seen such a wide disparity in CEO pay and
500 times.
500 times, which, it's, obviously I want everyone to make money and be successful, but when you see a headline today that, the financial firms and their CEOs, made $1.6 billion in salary and bonuses this year, it's somewhat, we need to take a step back and say, okay, is this the right policy? And I'm not, talking about socialism or anything like that.
No.
I'm just talking about the right balance to make sure that people are protected in terms of growing our economy with, just as you said, as the right high-paying jobs, so that our kids and my grandkids hopefully will have those jobs, and they're not somewhere else.
And those that perhaps aren't in the higher skill level, that minimum wage should be a living wage and be able to support your family upon that.
Well, I think that's a big thing, which I think we're going to see coming, is going to be a lot of the infrastructure improvements. There's been stories for years and years now about how the infrastructure is falling apart. For example, the bridge in Minnesota that just fell down.
Yeah.
But it's that is not totally unknown in Virginia. I mean, we've been growing hay in our medians now for about the last 2 years because we don't have enough money to mow the grass. It's really incredible when you think about the fact that the rail line to Dulles costs, we spend what the equivalent of a rail line to Dulles, we spend that about once every week and a half in Iraq. And a big part of our problem is that we've been shipping all of our capital abroad, whether it's to Iraq or China because of the trade deficit or other things. And I think what's going to be coming, it's going to stimulate a lot of the kind of jobs you were just talking about, is a lot of infrastructure development with this $800 billion stimulus package that President Obama, or soon-to-be President Obama, is talking about. And in Virginia, there's no shortage of possibilities that are out there. In 2003, when Governor Warner was pushing through he was pushing through 2 packages. Everybody forgets about this, but at the time he was pushing through 1 package to support the general fund, to increase education improvement, educational funding, to support police and fire and basic services, Medicaid, things like that. That's the one that ended up passing because it had the support of teachers and firefighters and police officers, community PTAs, et cetera. But he was also pushing us on a separate track, a transportation solution to solve the Commonwealth's transportation problems. And in part of doing that, he had a study done called VTrans 2025, which said that in Virginia, over the next 20 years, we have $105 billion of unfunded transportation needs in this state, and that was 5 years ago. Today, who knows, it's probably $120 billion, and with the way the revenue's been going, it's probably even higher than that. And when you stop and think about that, that's the equivalent of about, I don't know, was it 125 divided by 20 is about $6 billion, $7 billion a year in unfunded transportation needs, which is a huge number. That's 7 rail lines to Dulles every year that we don't have the money for right now. And we obviously need to raise the money and start making those investments. But the beauty of infrastructure investments is that they recycle dollars throughout the American economy and throughout the local economy. Yeah. And even amazingly, Ronald Reagan recognized this. I think the last federal gas tax that got pushed through was by Ronald Reagan in 1984. When you go back and read his statement, it sounds like Bill Clinton. Actually, Bill Clinton, I think, did the last one, the last federal gas tax increase. Ronald Reagan did the one before that, and he was talking about how business needs open roads and be able to move their goods around, and that these create good jobs for people, and it stimulates economic activity. And you build a bridge, you get concrete, you get asphalt, you get steel, you get this broad economic impact. And you go talk to some of the Republicans in the legislature nowadays. They seem to forget that Republicans used to stand for pay as you go, and that if we have a problem that takes money to fix it, you actually maybe need to adjust revenue on the revenue side every once in a while to fix it instead of yanking money out of schools to pay for a bridge. And it's that kind of nonsense which has really driven the business community, the broader, a lot of the business community away from the Republican Party, because these guys are just, they've had their head in the sand and they've been selling this snake oil that everybody who's intelligent about these issues understands doesn't work. It's just this bridge to nowhere is basically what it amounts to. You can only starve the government, but for so long, and pretty soon, your bridges start to fall down.
Absolutely, that's a very good point.
So, anyways, that's some of the stuff we talked. We've had a couple meetings on transportation. We had former Secretary Milliken came and spoke to us about a year ago, and he talked about a lot of what was driving Northern Virginia traffic, which was fascinating stuff.
And a lot of, as you were saying, the public-private partnerships and a lot of the smart growth conversation, if people can live closer to where they work or get to where they work closer, or quicker, you have a happier group of employees that are actually more productive and able to give back to the work and to the community just because of the very basis of how they're able to balance life, their personal life, and their work life.
Absolutely.
If I could get home on time, I'd have a much happier marriage.
and that ripples across the stage.
Exactly. There's many benefits to come from Scott having a happy marriage.
Yeah, my children would be happy, my soccer team would be happy.
But we joke, but these are important issues from a competitive standpoint. As as business leaders, it's transportation, it's healthcare. These are issues where we're wasting millions, billions of dollars on a system that, for example, again, not to come back to my sector, the technology sector, but why can't we have electronic healthcare records across the board, and the cost savings and the benefits that come to that? 100,000 people die every year in the United States because of misdiagnosis based on someone misreading a healthcare record or not having it. And there's studies have proven that if we infuse technology in the right way in the healthcare sector, the savings and the cost savings across the board will be have many benefits, and so again, I look at this as a broad range of issues as a competitive differentiator, and we need to get this right. And that's coming back to the Business Council. These are the kind of conversations that we try to encourage and spur, so our leaders are thinking about these issues in a more broad way across the state.
And as you were saying, when you had highlighted the green technology, making sure people understand what the approach is and what the possibilities are. And I know that yourself and I believe some of your other board members being able to invest back into that process so that we're not only bringing good jobs and good companies to the area, but progressive ideals as well.
Absolutely. California's a good example, and Scott brought it up before. if you look at what California's done, not only under Governor Schwarzenegger, Republican, we'll say, maybe in name only at this point, but over the last 25 to 30 years, that state has proven that you can invest in green, if you will, green technologies, create good jobs, and keep electricity use basically flat as their population has exploded. So to say this is a question of trading, business growth for kind of the environment is a non-issue.
And these are technologies that are ready to go now. It's
absolutely.
Not something that
Wind,
needs
solar.
Further study. We're talking about ready to break ground today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
Virginia's got the same possibilities. We just have the right economic and tax policies and other policies to spur it.
We very much do. As we're leading off, you've had a lot of people that have spoken to your organization, and a lot of your educational platforms as far as networking within the area, I think, are to be commended, and I hope you continue to do that. What would you like to do as far as like a sales pitch to people to join the organization and feel a part of? Not necessarily you're reaching out to independents as well. We don't want to make this too biased toward the left, but as far as enriching the policy discussion, maybe you can give a quick sales pitch to our listeners.
Well, if you're a Republican and you're unhappy, I think our group is significant in a lot of different ways. Number one, you meet a lot of new people. I think a lot of times as a business owner, I'm an attorney. I practice law. We have 16 lawyers in my law firm. People don't think of lawyers as business owners, but we probably have 30 people that work at our law firm. It is a business, and actually the legal business is a big part of business in the DC metro area. But when you're part of the business community, a lot of times I think you feel like that there's not a lot of Democrats out there because there's this misconception that I think it's still this myth that's out there. And especially today, there's a lot more Democrats in the business community than I think people really realize. And I think it's good to come to an organization like ours and be able to talk about or meet other people that own businesses or that are involved in business issues and to understand there's other Democrats out there to meet. It's also a great opportunity to meet, especially if you're around here. I think a lot more people tend to be more active at the federal level. It's kind of different from most other communities in the United States, probably. The federal government is such a broad presence here that we have a lot of people. If you look at the donation records, whatever, they contribute federally, they're active federally, but they don't pay as much attention to the state legislature or to local government, even though they're very politically active people. And there's a lot of action that happens, a lot of very important things that are decided at the state and local level, and our organization provides a means by which these folks can meet a lot of our state and local elected leaders on a regular basis. We always at least have 1 or 2 delegates or senators at our meetings, unless we're during the session. We usually get a couple supervisors or school board members at our meetings. And then we have these statewide candidates, which are coming through like crazy right now. They're falling over each other just to get there early to meet everybody starting at 7:30. So it's a good opportunity to meet people, to broaden your network, to meet leaders, and when you get a chance to meet with elected officials, you get a chance to really impact policy because you can sit down and tell them the issues that are important to you and things they ought to focus on. They're not, they have a lot to learn, and it's always good for them to meet new people and hear stories and ideas, and it's one way you can really make a difference if you want to. So. Jim,
anything to add, Jim?
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think the Business Council provides a great forum for people who, like myself and like Scott, want to help solve big problems. And as Scott said, we have a lot of different elected officials that you have great access, and a lot of our members have provided good ideas for good policies.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Jim Hawk and Scott Sarrowville, for joining us. We have the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, where it's truth to the saying, all politics is local. Thank you for joining us.
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged. Where teachers have more time to teach. And students are excited about learning. there's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming. Right to your neighborhood. And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has the drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/meth.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My name is Shannon Sullivan, your host this evening, and we're speaking with the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council. I have with me Jim Hawk, who's president of the council, and Scott Serval, who is director and former president of the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council. And we've touched upon it a little bit in the past, promoting your group as the Democratic Chamber of Commerce, as perhaps an alternative, but more of a broader discussion of ideals in the business community that can be more of an educational component of any of the policies we're trying to move. Would you agree with this statement, or being too harsh on the chamber?
Well, I think we've, the chamber is good and bad in a lot of ways, but we're trying to build the business council as some place that, like you said, Shannon, so well, is that a place where people can come to talk about big ideas and solving big problems for the Commonwealth. So, ranging from healthcare to education to green technology, as we covered before. But I can only speak personally. Some of the chamber's activities, need to be broadened a little bit, and the base of support broadened as well. It varies from chamber to chamber. I can't speak for the Fairfax chamber. I can only speak as an Arlington resident, which is much different. But I don't know, Scott, if you.
Yeah, well, there's multiple chambers, and the Fairfax County chamber is obviously the biggest one. But even within Fairfax County, there's a lot of smaller ones. There's a Vienna Chamber of Commerce. There's the Lee Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce. There's the Springfield Chamber of Commerce. Some people would consider the Northern Virginia Technology Council to be effectively a chamber of commerce focused on that. But I've seen it myself. I'm very active in my local chamber of commerce, and actually I'm on the legislative committee because I do have a little bit of an interest in politics. And at our last committee meeting, one of the things we had to debate was some missive that came down, I forget from what group, asking our Chamber of Commerce to get on board with, of all things, the medical malpractice medical malpractice liability cap, which the missive came from some statewide Chamber of Commerce. And I'm sitting here scratching my head going, well,
how does this pertain locally?
Yeah, right. And in a lot of ways, the Republican Party has effectively used the chambers of commerce in the past to stalk on their issues. And they continue to do so. There's some business organizations which are a little less closely affiliated. Virginia Free comes to mind, although from my point of view, they still trend somewhat to the right. Although it tends to try and have support on both sides. It's still mostly a Republican organization, I think, from what I can tell. I haven't looked at it carefully, but our organization provides a means whereby people can network and talk about such things, to find out what's going on within these various chambers, to see these things and to try and deal with them when they happen. It's another thing that we do. But the chambers, I've been in them, and they're, the chambers of commerce are still, at least the leadership of them tends to be more dominated by
national interests,
and by Republicans, and the few Republicans that have tried to break out of that and to try and straighten them out haven't been treated very well, as just happened with the Kane-Kilgore endorsement in 05. You know, there's a lot of people that were Republicans, maybe former Republicans now, who were raising issues with that.
Well, it threw a lot of people for a loop.
Yeah, who were saying things about that, and they didn't get treated very well. But
and I think you've seen too, you know, our current governor, our past governor, who have been very business friendly. You know, Mark Warner comes from a business background. He's had to make, you know, a bottom line business and watch a P&L and all these kind of things as you do as a business person. And, you know, Virginia was rated the best managed state in the nation. And so, you know.
Continues to be.
Continues to be. So, you know, Virginia is not only, you know, these policies are not only important here, but, you know, folks in other states are looking to see, you know, how they did it, and looking to Virginia as a great example. And you know, from the Obama campaign all down, they looked at Virginia and said, you know, how can we do some of the similar things from a policy side as well? So I think you're going to see some of the Virginia influence even on national politics continue.
Yeah, well, let's take the Warner example. He was faced with some very tough economic times, not unlike where we stand today, and he had to make the decision, you know, how to make up that deficit. And taxes were one of the options on the table, which put him very much at odds with the hard and fast, no tax folks of the Republican Party. And he ended up getting a lot of Republicans that came to his side. And
17.
Wondering, so
not that we're counting.
He had some that came to his side. But how does that play out? This hard and fast on taxes, it just seems actually quite silly to me that there's an absolute.
Right. Well, to me as a business owner, I mean, you never want to take out a weapon in your arsenal, you know, and not to say, you know, no one wants to raise taxes, right? And this is a canard that's been used by Republicans for a long time. But the bottom line is, you know, as we said, you know, we're in the business of trying to find solutions, and if you take one option off the table, it makes it really difficult to pursue other options as well. So I think the Warner example is a great one. I mean, you saw President Clinton as well in the early 90s, you know, have to make some hard budget choices, you know. You know, I was with someone today who was joking that, you know, it'll be nice to have economists back in charge of the government, you know, and not just someone who is, you know, hard and fast on taxes as your economic policy. So,
or scientists in charge of science.
And scientists in charge of science, novel ideas, right,
A
Scott?
president that takes advice.
Exactly. But these are really important ideas, and these are big issues, and you know, at some point, you know, you need revenue raisers, you know, and like I said, no one wants to raise taxes, but you have to have, you know, a balanced approach to everything you do in public policy.
You know, the crazy thing is that Harry Byrd, who is probably the most fiscally conservative politician in history of human experience, former governor of Virginia, became governor in the 1920s. And when he came to office, he was an apple orchard owner. He was in the apple business. And Harry Byrd came into a horrible economic situation when he took the governor's mansion in the 1920s. And his big mantra was, pay as you go. That's all he ever said, pay as you go. And that was the Virginia policy actually through today. And you know, Harry Byrd, although he was extremely fiscally conservative, he used to stall up bills on the floor of the Senate over nickels and dimes and pennies and things. He actually was the first Virginia politician to put the estate tax in play. And the reason he put the estate tax in was because he thought when they put the Virginia income tax in, it was fair to ask people not to ask everybody to pay. And he thought that people that had a lot of money ought to pay a little bit more to be fair as a revenue policy. And this is the most arch fiscally conservative guy on the planet. And he continued that way until he died in 1965. And that's the way Republicans were until Grover Norquist. They were more about pay as you go and limited government in the sense of you watch your expenditures, but if there's debt, you raise revenue to meet the debt. You don't just cut. And this whole idea that being fiscally conservative today has something to do with nothing but cutting taxes is nonsense. And I don't know where that myth, Norquist and Karl Rove and these guys have done an effective job of perpetuating that myth. But you know, I know running a business that, you know, if I'm not making money, I got to do more than fire people. I maybe got to work harder. I got to do something on the revenue side too. I mean, it's not strictly about, you know, your employees aren't working hard enough.
You mean cutting wages of our auto workers is the first thing we should do to solve our crisis?
But
Yeah.
we talked earlier about green technology and broadband and infusing technologies, and bringing these high-wage jobs comes with an added benefit of those folks are paying taxes, right? And if we grow our tax base, we're more fiscally in better fiscal shape than we can be.
And they're spending more in the local community as well. You also have a couple events coming up as far as your January meeting and
Absolutely.
maybe something special on the 20th?
Our January 9th meeting, we have Senator Mary Margaret Whipple to give a legislative preview as well. That's the first part of the meeting. And the second part of the meeting, we have Jean Cummings, the national political correspondent with the Politico. Some of your viewers might recognize her as well from, she was one of the panelists questioning Senator Clinton and Senator Obama in a couple of the presidential debates, the one CNN Univision debate in Los Angeles in February as well. And then January 20th, or excuse me, 19th, the Virginia inaugural ball is taking place. We're helping sponsor, acting as a sponsor of that ball as well. And
no tickets though; it's sold out.
No tickets, sold out in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And then also we're hoping, Shannon, again, just to put another plug for a gubernatorial forum later in the year as well. With the gubernatorial candidates, and we'll be inviting also lieutenant governor candidates as
and the attorney general
and the attorney general candidates as well.
And there's a lot coming in the next year. We have the entire House of Delegates is up for election, and you've already admitted that you have quite a few, if not all of them, clamoring at your door for a little, not a slice of the pie, but to be able to discuss the issues that are important to you and to the rest of the business community.
Well, there's going to be primaries probably in quite a few House of Delegate seats to be able to run as the Democrat, and I suspect that a lot of the primary candidates are probably going to be at our meetings a lot between now and the June primary as well. So,
which to me is exciting, because primaries are the forum where you have the most honest discussion of where you stand, as far as a candidate, your political philosophy and why you want to run for office.
Right. Absolutely. Right, but if you want to have some say about where the Democratic Party is and where it ought to go, primary is your chance to exercise your opinion and also to talk to these candidates about what their positions they ought to be, what issues they ought to be focused on. So it's good to be involved early in the process and not just in September, October, November.
Absolutely. And so as we move forward in this next year, if people were interested in joining your organization, you have to be 18 years or older. I think it's $150 annual membership fee, and you get all the perks and the benefits of the networking possibilities, knowing your state and local legislators, and understanding what policies are important not just to the business community, but to the local and the state government as well.
Absolutely.
And it's a wonderful forum to be able to educate yourself and be able to reach back into your own community and your own business to further our progressive ideals. We don't hold back. We know who we are. So I want to thank you so much, Jim and Scott. Thank you for coming and being on the show today. And again, if you want to reach out to the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council, you can do so on their website, which is www.nvdembiz.org. Thank you for tuning in to the Inside Scoop. I'm Shannon Sullivan.